Do you remember when you met him?
Vaguely.
I told you he was trouble.
And I told you I could handle a little trouble for a face that way.
I seem to remember eloquent lectures on the curvature of his arse.
And things said while drunk don't count.
No? Since when?
Since I'm embarrassing when I'm tipsy.
No, you're not. You just overshare. To me, specifically.
Well, that's what happens when you sign up to be my best friend. It's in the job description, then.
You were right. I really should have read that more carefully.
The Kelpie's definitely dead, right? They won't take you away from me.
Come back.
Listen. I'm going to tell you a story about hope. Well, it's a story about losing though. It's a story about losing everything and everyone you ever loved. Even the people you didn't know you loved until... Anyway, the point is that this is big. I've got so much to tell you, I feel like I could have forever and I wouldn't have enough time. I guess it's kind of like life that way. But this story is nothing like the life you've known before. This is a story about magic and monsters. It's about knights and dragons, witches and kings. It's about life and death and dreams and love and everyone who's ever hidden in the dark where you think they can't see you. Yeah. Me too. I think sometimes things get so bad you become convinced that the only way out is to burn it all down and try again. Let's start there.
Hello, welcome to the stream. This is going to be a slightly more chaotic affair than normal because you'll see in a second. Hello.
Hi.
We have an Ella, a very
Hi.
small Ella.
I'm so tiny.
we have a mini Ella joining us today, and we also have a Ross joining us today as well. Hi, how you doing? How is everybody doing? I'm going to keep turning back and forth.
Yeah,
Today.
good, thank you. I had a very nerdy day today with you, and I saw Ross yesterday. That was pretty great too.
I forgot to turn the music off, so that's what those loud noises are. Sorry, everyone.
It's a good start.
Starting strong. No, it was more that so after the music that I have for the stream, it's a project file, and that's also after that is where I cut the clips for all the actors' voice reels. So what happened there was it just played the scene in episode 4 where Perry gets mauled by dogs, just over us talking about how we are. So it's good, it's fine. I was expecting chaos, and chaos is indeed reigning. Hello Ella, also in chat. Hi Kieran. Hi Metasweet and Magic. Hello Mysterious. Hello Jocelyn here. So today we've talked a lot about how the music for the series was made. We're getting double loaded. Yes, I'm going through 2 microphones at once. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to live with that. Unfortunately, we've talked a lot about how the music for the series was made. We have talked a lot about how the sound design was made. But today we are going to spend a bit of time talking about how the series itself was physically made. We're going to be talking about things like funding. We're going to be talking about how we ran the recording sessions. We're going to be talking about casting, I think was the other thing we wanted to talk about. It's mostly going to be Ross talking about all the amazing things that Ross did for this project, and very much be a primer on why you should hire Ross for projects.
Every podcast needs a Ross.
Every podcast needs a Ross. I'm just going to quickly check something just to make sure I'm not in fact coming through twice in that. We are getting... Yeah, no, we're okay, we're fine.
We're not getting any Ross audio.
We don't hear Ross. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, sorry, 2 seconds.
Well, Ross is silenced and we've got double amber. I can see that the power is going to their head.
Ross, can you actually talk?
Okay. Hey, can you hear me now?
Okay, you should be able to be heard now.
I'm sitting so far back because Amber wanted me to understand how small I am in the grand
That's
scheme
not
of
true.
things.
Okay, we can hear Ross now, which is good. So, to recap, we're going to be Ross. What were the? You've got a list of things you want to talk about today. When it comes to good, okay, that's good. So there is some semblance of structure and order on the stream today. Maybe we'll try. We're off to a fantastic start as always. So yeah, like this was a very big project, and we had to do a lot of organizing, and there was a lot of stuff that happened behind the scenes, and there's lots of systems and processes that we used to make the show, to get the show made first of all, but then actually organizing the show throughout, from pre-production, production, and then post-production. And we wanted to take a bit of time to dedicate to that and actually talk about it, because we think like while we're reasonably confident that most people who tune into these streams are tangentially involved in audio drama themselves and might be interested in making it or are currently making audio drama, and we very much care about resource sharing and knowledge sharing, and that's kind of what this stream is about. We're going to talk about the kind of nuts and bolts stuff that is that goes into making an audio drama. So if you have questions, please do stick them in the chat. Important question: what is written on Ross? I think they meant what is written on Ross's shirt.
Queer poetry saves lives.
Nice, good.
And if you like queer poetry, you should check out Ross's podcast, Folkslaw, which is a podcast entirely made up of queer poetry about queer themes in a kind of horror and supernatural sense, and it fucking rules.
Okay.
Yes.
Pottery. No, poetry, not pottery. I mean, queer pottery. Who knows? I've not. Okay, shall we get started? So,
Yeah, so Amber kind of messaged me earlier and went, like, have you got stuff to talk about? And I thought, I should probably have that. So Ella thinks that she has had an early day today. I spent 5.5 hours watching wrestling, which I think is 1,000% nerdier. But during that process, I went back and looked at some of our old documents. Including the initial timeline for Camlann, which gave me an indication of all the things we thought we were going to do. We hit that timeline out of the park, and I'm pretty proud of that. I think you two should be as well, because a lot of the ownership of those tasks came down to you.
Well, I think it's also worth saying as well. Like I did the final budget this week, and we Camlann cost exactly as much as we thought it would.
Yay!
We came in. Well, that's not true. We were £17 over budget, which I think was probably my fault somehow.
It's all the iron brew.
It was the iron brew we ordered. Yeah, no, I'll take that. But yeah, I do think we do have some documents to show today. I don't believe I have the timeline up. Let me see if I can find that.
It's in the initial. It's in with the budget. If I can
proposed
send a
budget.
link
Yes,
if you
no.
want.
I think I have found it. Well, should we start with the timeline?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Well, first I actually had some things pre this in terms of this is where I started. But actually, I thought what would be an interesting way to start, because we've talked variously on these streams about our connections, the three of us. But I thought, question, Ella, you were working on this for 10 years, and Amber, you've known you were going to be a part of it for at least 5 of those years, I want to say? 2019?
2019,
Yeah.
5 years.
Yep.
What the hell?
So,
It took so long to make this.
Shut up!
I came on board in 2023. What was the process of getting the team together, Ella, from your point of view? Because you were the first person.
Yeah.
You were one person.
So from my point of view, I am fortunate to know a lot of amazing people on the audio drama scene in the UK, but also around the world. And so I was also in the very fortunate position of being able to kind of pick what producers and sound designers and stuff I wanted to work with. From the start, because I knew a lot of actors, I really wanted to do an open casting call, so I knew that I didn't want it to be an invite-only cast. But in terms of the production team, I knew that whoever the producer was, this idea is my baby, and it needed to be a producer and sound designer that I felt like I could work with and communicate with and trust. And that was really important. So I talked to a few people way back. And then the other thing, I guess, from my point of view, was that Camlann was originally written to be field recorded, to be recorded on location at my nan's house, which is where it's set, which is a real place in Wales. And so I wanted to work with audio producers and sound designers who were confident recording outside. And so there are lots of amazing audio producers and sound designers in the UK and on the podcast team. There's not that many who are very confident with recording outdoors, because recording outdoors is quite a specific skill. So that narrowed it down quite a lot. And then way back in 2019, the very lovely Headley Knights, who's over at We Fix Space Junk, helped me kind of do a test of the opening, and somewhere I think on the Camlann Facebook page there's an old video of me and Beth, who writes Space Junk and is the Kelpie in episode 2, and Lizzie Milton, who's a playwright, running through some woods outside of London with a microphone, just seeing if the opening scene of the gang worked from an audio perspective. And then time passed, people's lives changed, and I also just got to know Amber a lot better as a friend and as a colleague. And I think, like, increasingly Amber and I kind of kept being like, we should work on something together. We should really work on something together. We really agree on a lot of things creatively when it comes to audio. And we did an episode of Monkey Tales that I wrote, which was like a Hope thing. And in my head, that was kind of like almost kind of an audition.
That was an audition?
Like, in my head, I wanted to see, like, how I would feel about how Amber sound designed my writing, because I've worked with lots of sound designers on other people's writing, and I've kind of worked with sound designers where it's been like, we haven't always been the best fit because we've just been two people working in an organization. And so I made this episode of Monkey Tales and kind of saw how Amber interpreted my work, and that was really lovely. And so then I really wanted to kind of come back to Amber and be like, would you consider kind of, not only making the music for us, which I knew I wanted them to do, because their music was so in line with how I imagined Camlann, but also, would you consider producing and sound designing it? And obviously Amber also has a background in film, so I knew that they would be, like, capable and confident with the outdoor stuff if we did go down that direction. And then it was Amber who suggested getting Ross involved. So I feel like this is the point where I should hand over to you, Amber.
Yeah, well, because I think we've just got a new follower. Hello, Crystal's Imagination. I hope you enjoy your time here. I mean, I think from my perspective, because I think, Ross, we just finished doing Folklore, right? Yeah,
yep.
we just wrapped up Folklore in its sort of totality, and I was very much just like, I like working with Ross, and like the bits that I feel like I am not very good at when it comes to making stuff is the organizational side of things. And Folklore, as Folklore went on, was this project that got bigger and bigger with each season. Each season had its own particular difficulties. Like, I think the first season was, well, the pilot series, none of us knew what we were doing. This was we were just kind of making it up as we went along. And then season 1 we had to make in lockdown. And then season 2, it was trying to bring this season, the series to a close, but also kind of bring in. We ended up having to experiment with like hybrid recording. Like, some of it was recorded in studio, some of it was recorded remotely. Sometimes it was both at the same time, which is an experience I would not recommend. It is an imperfect way to record stuff. So that's better at Amber Audio. I'm kind of muting whichever mic is not being used at the one time, so that should hopefully help with the audio quality. I think I kind of came out of Folklore being like, any project I work on going forward, I would like Ross to be involved. And I knew Camlann was going to be a massive undertaking in all aspects of the production. I knew it was going to be a huge thing to organize. It was going to be a huge thing to schedule. It was going to be a huge thing to run a recording session for. And I kind of knew that for a project this size, my focus was the best thing for best place for my focus to be was in the studio and in the post-production side of things. And so from that, it was like, it was like slamming the phone down and going, "Get me Ross MacFarlane." So it was kind of I think it was a pretty immediate thing. Yeah. I pretty immediately went, I will only do it if Ross MacFarlane is involved.
Yeah, and you were like, I need to talk to Ross and see how he'd feel about it, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And at that point, I barely knew Ross. Like, I think, like, Ross later told me that we had once met at a Middle Below live show, and I was just really dumb about that. But I did know Folklore, and I'd really enjoyed the first season of Folklore during the pandemic, and I remember, like, kind of talking about that a lot online. And so when Amber was like, oh, well, Ross is, like, one of the people involved with Folklore, I was like, oh, great. And also just, I'm very close to Amber as my friend and colleague and trust them implicitly, and so if they were like, we need Ross, then I was like, okay, we need Ross. Like, I trust you, I believe you, let's get Ross on board. And then I remember skipping ahead at some point, meeting Ross and making him listen to me talk for like 3 hours about like my overall storyline for Camlann, not only in like the series that we've made, but like the whole story of where all of the characters go in like in my head of this like massive epic ambitious like storyline. And he passed the acid test of being able to survive Ella talking to him for 3 hours, so I felt like he would be able to work with us. But yeah, I don't know what your perspective on it was, Ross.
Yeah, so I had the very fun experience of the kind of mixed experience of having someone come up to you and going, so my friend also wants to make a podcast. Could you help them get funding for that? On one of me and Amber go on, for context of the stream, me and Amber go on very long walks, kind of once every 3-4 months, and catch up and talk. Generally nonsense about all things creative and ideas and fun. And it was on the walk that we did after Folklore season finale went out, because Amber had been hard at work doing Folklore, so we were catching up. And Amber said, yeah, so my friend wants to make a podcast. It's a big one. You know, it's one she's had in her head for ages. And I'm like, and you know, would you be able to come on board both as a production coordinator and help us get funding? And I was like, yeah, sure. It's like, oh, it's Ella Watts, by the way. I was like, oh, okay, right, yeah, like, totally. It's that way of, like, always willing to help, always willing to have a conversation with someone about funding. But I think, I'm sure both of you will relate to the amount of people who'll say, yeah, like, I'd quite like to get funding for my show, or I would quite like to make a show as well. And you have to be like, that's amazing, please do make your show.
I look forward to listening to it. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. And it's sincere, and I mean it. And I've had chats literally off the back of this stream where someone has messaged and said, "Hey, could you give us a hand with where to start off on funding things?" And I now just have a massive document that I can send you, and I will have a little chat with you if you need. That is something I think more people should apply for funding, and we'll get there in 5 minutes. But yeah, when I found out it was Ella, I was like, oh, this is going to be really interesting, because I did not know of Ella's work, but I knew of Ella as the big name on campus in audio drama.
Oh God, I'm the supervillain of audio drama. There's a good moment to say, like, I think it's very funny that a journalist once called me the queen of audio drama. I sometimes worry people take it too seriously, and as an English woman, I want to be very clear, I'm not interested in being the monarch of anything. Like, I do not want to actually be, I am an anti-royalist. I democratize the power. Like, anyway, sorry.
You're the chancellor
So,
of
yeah.
audio fiction.
But, yeah. Obviously, I say this as a joke, largely because if Amber comes to me with a project, I'm probably going to be interested. I love working with Amber, and I think since Folklore...
There's a bit of a feedback loop whenever we start talking about ideas. It does become this, oh yeah, we should absolutely make that. Yes, we need to make that 100%, let's make that. It just goes on and on and on.
And hey, we're gonna make a few of them. Let's go. Yeah. So my perspective was that, and then of course I had I think me and Ella had a call first, which was a nice call. Or the three of us had a call to kind of for me to officially meet Ella. And then yeah, I happened to be in Manchester and got like a wonderful background on all of the story of Camlann. I was down for a festival, so I was a little worse for wear at 11 o'clock in the morning, but it was kind of the perfect chat to just be like, oh, this is a very cool person. I think it ended up with us talking about anarchist libraries and
yes!
The destruction of the state. So I was like, yeah, no, this is a good vibe for a person to work with. And yeah, that was it kind of like snowballed from there very quickly into, oh, and now we're making it. Which started with segue.
Well, that started with let me bring this. I'll share the screen.
A budget.
Well, let's start with the production timeline.
Okay.
Let me share the screen so you can also see what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
It says it might be. Oh, hang on. Oh no! What's happening? Right. Well, hang on. Oh, there we go. There we go. Hopefully this does not tack the computer. There we go. So yeah, so this is our this is the production timeline. Ross, just checking you can see it.
Yeah, I've got it up, I think.
Marvelous. Okay. So this is what we were kind of. Sorry, I'm just moving stuff around so I can still see the chat, because I don't want to be answering questions and then I don't want to have lots of questions come out and see things. So, was this was the final one, right? This was the.
This was not updated beyond the beginning of funding. I'm just actually having a quick check to see. Yeah, I would. One sec. Yeah. I don't think there's anything on there that we shouldn't be showing. Just checking.
Yeah. It's that moment of, we probably should have vetted this before we started the stream. Oh well.
Yeah. The tabs down the bottom were really interesting before you squeezed in that stream. Yes, this is the timeline. So this is what I put together once I'd had a few conversations with everyone and kind of worked out a basic budget. We knew that we wanted to apply to both Elevate, which is the Inevitable Foundation. It was their program that funded that we initially applied for, I want to say. It was Elevate for Podcasters, which is run by the Inevitable Foundation, sponsored by Spotify, and they were the ones that gave us the that we first applied to for Ella to get professional development money that would include working on Camlann, and then along with that we applied for money from Creative Scotland, which is the public funding. We left a big time to write those applications and then send them in, and once those were done we had to start actually doing everything like writing. We were very lucky. Ella had earlier drafts of the script that would give us enough information to start casting in advance, so you can see there's like an overlap in the casting and the writing, and we knew that halfway through the writing process we would have a pretty good idea of what kind of cast we would need, which can be quite difficult when you're trying to fit a project in, especially with Creative Scotland. Once you start a project you must finish it within a year, and so to fit in the writing of a 9-episode series and then the production of it, if you want to give yourself enough time, you need to find some places to overlap things. Like luckily, as I say, with early drafts we knew who the main code of casts were going to be. As you can see, as Amber's showing us, the episodes were never added in because I think probably the last time we looked at this was when we decided to do fortnightly releases.
Yes.
Because that is a 9-week release window that we initially put in.
Good God, I'm so glad we didn't do that.
You're welcome.
I love the fact that I'd like to say this budget was fully okayed by this timeline was fully okayed with everyone, with I think 8-week post-production schedule.
Yep. So we set
Amber, what were you thinking?
To give to give everyone an idea, just to kind of explain what they're looking at here. So these columns here are weeks. Each individual box is a week, and then from here this is week 2, and this is the week commencing date at the top there. So it starts in February and then goes all the way through to what was the final one here? March. March 2024. So yeah, we give ourselves 8 weeks to do post-production.
No. To be clear, Amber Devereaux, you agreed to 8 weeks, and I said, and I remember having this meeting, and I said, no, we will not. We will need more time than that. Because I have seen you go into crunch mode on your projects, and I have seen you be like, no, I can do it. Don't even worry about it. And I was like, a lot of this project was me and Ross saying to Amber, we know that you can, in theory, if you don't sleep, do this thing. But consider, Amber, what if you did something in a way that included sleeping, eating, and resting on weekends? And bullying you into it.
To be fair, in my defense, when I initially agreed to this, I didn't have any other work lined up.
Yeah, no, that was the other big thing.
But then the series that I was working on, first of all, overran.
Yeah.
But then also they had a season 2 confirmed, but it started directly after season 1 finished. So basically it meant that season 1 finished, and then I had to roll straight into another job, and then now I had... So this was the podcast I work on full time, and then I had to do Camlann as well. So it basically, it was, I'm glad we didn't stick to this. I'm glad we moved to a 2-week schedule. But yeah, so initially things were going to be a lot more squeezed. And I think if this was the only love to see people bullying their friends into sustainable working conditions.
And it's basically the production process of Camlann. At every point, one of the three of us did that to each other. Like, Ross and Amber absolutely bullied me into being in, like, better working conditions, because I'd be like, oh no, I can write really fast. I've definitely had the conversation with Ross where I was like, well, I can, in theory, write like 100,000 words in a week. And Ross was like, Ella, you have a job. And also, how did you feel after writing those 100,000 words? And I was like, bad. And he was like, yeah. So we're not going to do that. We're going to do it like in this more sustainable way. Yeah, we love it.
I think that is kind of project coordinator. If you're doing your job right, everyone goes home on time. Is basically the mantra I live by. Everyone goes home on time, not thinking about work. Like, I come from, I did some work in a corporate background for about 6 years in educational publishing, and that's a slightly more difficult thing to impress upon people in that environment, but is equally important. So, yeah, I think timeline-wise, we just did a lot of, like, that was a very broad, like, let's give a few weeks and kind of, the casting, we went into the most detail here, I can see.
Yeah. This whole bit here was all the casting call.
Because it was very early on in the process that we needed to make sure we knew that we could get everyone, because the important deliverables that we have here are scripts. We need to get the scripts out at enough time so that we can get the actors in time to give the actors the scripts in enough time to do the recording. Like, that is basically the biggest things. And we need to do the recording in enough time that Amber has enough time to edit so the episodes go out to you, the audience. Those are like your deliverables. Those are the key points you need to hit, and they all need to kind of cascade down that page. So I think that ends with scripts go out to actors out here. And it was just like, we need enough time that those scripts are definitely ready. So if I was doing this timeline more detailed, I would have put more things under the writing. Like, for instance, we had consultancies, we had rewrites, we had these sorts of things that kind of came along with the writing, and I would have, in a more detailed timeline, I'd have put those in. One of the things that definitely changed here is that that recording schedule changed significantly, and instead of having 4 weeks of recording, we had 1 week in the studio, and we had then a 2-week break. Yeah. And then 1 week of intense remote recording, where I think we got everything or almost everything done remote recording wise.
We got almost everything. We had to pick some stuff up for tech failures, but we had kind of assumed that there would be tech issues, which is just that, not everyone is set up with a full professional recording booth, and there's a whole other lecture to be had about how it's kind of an unfair expectation on actors these days that they have to be their own engineers as well as acting, that costs a lot of money to have the kit that is going to make your life easy, and a lot of the time people are kind of doing the best they can with the kit that they've got, but that means that when recording remotely, if you are recording with regular actors, you do have to assume that there are going to be a number of tech failures which are going to require pickups and stuff. If you're recording someone for PlayStation and you've got PlayStation money, then you can assume that they have got enough money to have been able to pay for a big booth and a powerful setup, and they've had the time to do that. But we don't have PlayStation money, we have grant funding money, and so we're kind of working, we're trying to meet people where they are, and that means that we have to know that we'll have to pick stuff up and fix it afterwards.
Yeah.
What
is there anything else of interest in the timeline, do you think?
Well, there's 3 weeks here, which was studio and tech sourcing, which is basically me taking the studio apart and putting it back together again, and buying a very expensive microphone. and I think this sort of block here, where we were figuring out the scheduling and figuring out the studio and the tech, that was really interesting to me. That was the first time I'd done that. We did have, because we also had a meeting, because you came up for recording, and we had I think it was the day before the first day, or maybe a couple of days before, where the three of us had a meeting in here, and we walked through the setups. We walked through the studio setups before the recording happened, and and that was really interesting. I mean, it was slightly scary because it was the moment where it felt very real all of a sudden.
Yeah, that was when you showed us the truck setup and I laughed and you didn't understand why I was laughing. And you did understand when you saw real people sitting in those seats and we realised how ridiculous it looked. But
yeah, that was a tricky week for me emotionally. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, like, do we want to talk about the casting process while we're here?
I can't oh, sorry.
Sorry, Amber didn't come through.
Oh, I was just saying, like, do we want to talk about the casting process quickly?
Yeah, sure. We're jumping a little bit, but wanna because I had budgeting.
Oh,
first.
right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Let's keep talking
That
about
is the
budgeting.
thing that fully comes like before anything else.
Okay.
If we want to do budgeting chat, we can do that now.
Well, yeah. Let's talk about budgeting because I feel like that's where a lot of people who I feel like it's always the question that gets asked at audio drama events, right? Like Ella, you'll know this.
Yeah.
Like the thing everyone is asking about is budgeting and how to pay for things. And we were very lucky that we managed to get a budget to pay for things for this one. So yeah, we should probably talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there was an aspect that Amber had brought me on board for. Oh, am I? Okay, you all paused. Am I still coming through?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. You're back. So yeah, one of the aspects Amber had brought me on board for was budgeting and fundraising. And Ella had found a fund which was the Inevitable Foundation, and we realised that one thing that's really important when it comes to public funding in the UK specifically is to have co-funding, is to have an organisation or an individual who has said, I believe in this project and I'm going to give it a little bit of money. And it means you're not asking for 100% of the budget for your project from the funder and the funder only. So the first thing we did was we kind of set up a plan. We set up a budget, a proposed budget that we could use some of the money from Elevate and then take that to Creative Scotland, who are the public funding body in Scotland, and say, hey, we've got this cool project and we're going to have this money from the Inevitable Foundation, Elevate for Podcasters Fund. Will you give us the rest so that we can make this really cool show? And yeah, we got lucky and they both said yes.
Yeah, they both said yes, not necessarily in the order that we needed them to, because we hadn't heard from Inevitable, but then Creative Scotland got back to us being like, we will only give you this money if Inevitable give you the money. So we had to and we only had like 10 days to secure it or something like that. So we basically had to send a slightly panicked email to the Inevitable Foundation being like, hi, we kind of need to know now. Yeah, they were very understanding about it, which was very kind of them. We were very lucky in that we managed to get everything we applied for, which was good. I think that was very lucky. Yeah, sorry, Ross, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It was, yeah, it's always stressful with budgeting and financing and getting money, but I think we're very aware that we are lucky to have a fully funded independent audio drama, because it's one of those things. If we are still operating on independent rates, but because we are working with funders, we also have to pay everyone industry rates to some degree. It's that strange thing of like everyone needs to get paid properly because we are funded, but our industry that we are working in is independent podcasting. So no one's getting paid Audible money to appear in these in Camlann, but we are paying people as best we can and making sure everyone is paid well for their work, and that adds up very quickly. And I think, yeah, one of the things that we kind of discussed previously is like just how much that is, especially as we're talking about Camlann season 2 and trying to get the money together for that. It's difficult to know how much people are aware of. Like, it is a matter of public record how much Camlann cost. Creative Scotland is a public body and they publish our budgets, or at least the bottom line of our budgets. And it was kind of one thing that we wanted to look through, because we had made mistakes before. There is a whole article that you can read on Tumblr on the folklore budgets for the pilot series, season 1 and season 2, because again, when working on that and with my partner, my creative partner on there, we were like, it's really important that people know how much it costs to make an audio drama. So we detailed 5 years of mistakes making budget audio drama for you, and how we ended up with Folklore season 2. And so I thought it was something important to talk about here. And yeah, I think Camlann comes in at over £30,000 to create, and that is with limitations, things that we want to do better in future seasons. And it's a lot of money to put together. I think, like, so Ella, you've worked in professional audio drama production in the past. Was that the kind of figure you were expecting when we were putting together Camlann?
Oh, no, that's way lower than commercial. It was, like, around what I expected for an independent production. So I know from, like, their crowdfunders, for example, that both Victoriosity and Wooden Overcoats spent about £25,000 on like seasons of their shows. And I knew that this would be equivalent. So I knew we would be in, like, the mid-20s to early 30s. Like, I knew that was kind of the place that this budget would be. But for context, like, and again, something that's massive public information, the BBC will offer like £10,000 to £15,000 for like an episode of an audio drama, normally like a kind of 45-minute audio drama, and they tend to average like £100,000 to £200,000 for a 10-episode audio drama like this. So on commercial rates in the UK and the British Isles, like an audio drama like this would cost £100,000 to £200,000. For an independent production, yeah, it's more like £25,000 to £35,000. And obviously all of these rates scale up massively again if you go to the US. Like, I think an important thing to be aware of is that in the media industry, like, everything is on a sliding scale, and it's often a little bit of how long is a piece of string thing. Like, when you start introducing like celebrities into things, like the amount of money getting spent on something is just going to skyrocket just to accommodate like X celebrity. So your Audible productions are going to be costing a lot of money because they are starring people like James McAvoy and Riz Ahmed, and they're written by people like Neil Gaiman, and Neil Gaiman isn't going to get out of bed for less than £100,000, you know. So but that's not the kind of money that we can base on. I know Lou said in the chat that he would love to know where we got our rates from. Voice acting rates you can find, but composing, production, etc. I mean, I would advise with voice acting rates just to make sure that you are looking at Equity, which is the Actors Union in the UK. They fairly regularly publish like their guidance for audio rates. It's sensible for an independent podcast to kind of look at like the lowest, like what they call like a small company. You can also look at SAG-AFTRA. You'll notice that the SAG-AFTRA rates versus the Equity rates are very different. Again, because SAG-AFTRA is the American union versus the British union, which is Equity. So by SAG-AFTRA standards, about £200 an hour is the minimum that you should be paying someone. By Equity rates, about £250 a day is the minimum you should be paying someone. If we assume that an 8-hour working day, in the US, you're looking at like £1,600 a day is a fair minimum union rate to pay someone. So you can see there's already that massive difference. But then when we look at for example, composing and production, in the UK, again, and bearing in mind the differences between the UK and the US, the UK Audio Network has a rates card where they do a survey every year or every couple of years on like what people are generally charging for things like production and sound design. So you can refer to that rates card that was published last year. £350 a day is pretty reasonable for a sound designer in the UK. And again, that will, like, as I'm sure Amber can confirm and anyone else working in audio, that goes up massively if you're talking about the US. I
can confirm. Like, the UK Audio Network, I think, is worth joining if you are interested in working in audio. Generally, like, they have a lot of job postings. There's lots of knowledge sharing. I'm gonna be a little bit indulgent here, but they also have awards, and I may have just won one. Sorry, you brought up UKAN, and I went, oh yeah, no, I've not told people about this yet. Yeah, so 2024 Composer of the Year. Camlann is already winning awards. Anyway, yes. So UK Audio Network, very good for rate cards. They're also they know a good composer when they see one. Clearly. Anyway.
And the other one is the Writers Guild of Great Britain has guidelines for audio rates, and it's the same. So the Writers Guild of America has audio rates for writers in the US. The Writers Guild of Great Britain has guidance for audio rates for writers in the UK. So in the UK, I believe the current guide price for like a 20 to 25 minute audio episode is £1,600. And, you know, a bit less than that if it's a shorter episode, a bit more than that if it's a longer episode. But you're looking at like £1,000 to £1,500 is like a kind of reasonable commercial rate for a writer writing a 20 minutes, a half hour audio drama, or episode of an audio drama. Yeah.
It terrifies me how much my work is technically worth. Yeah, me too. It's funny when, like, there was one time I was speaking to a client who was kind of interested in me working on a project, and they were like, well, this is our normal day, this is our usual day rate, is that okay for you? And it was double what I was currently charging at the time. And I sort of took a second and went, yeah, that's fine, I can make that work, I can work to that, that's all fine. But like, yeah, like having an idea of how of what your work is worth is very useful. I mean, because also it means for when you're doing stuff like this, when you're doing funding applications, you know what to write down in the boxes. I mean, usually, you know, I think, Ross, you can confirm this, historically for creative funding projects I undercharge, because I'm I charged per episode on this what I would normally charge per day, and I'm sure the both of you can confirm that I spent more than one day on each of these episodes.
Many more than one day. Many more than one day.
Yeah, it's one of those things of like, we are not a professional commercial podcast. Mm-hmm. We are an independent podcast, and that is what we pitch ourselves as, and that is the rates that we are the rates that we can afford to pay, and the amount of funding we can afford to get at this stage. Hey, be great if that changed for season 2. I think that would be wonderful. And if anyone has truly so much money that they'd like to give us, you're welcome to.
You can support Camlann by subscribing to our Twitch channel. All funding made on Twitch goes towards funding season 2. We also have a Ko-fi and a Patreon.
And you could be really funny right now and be someone who subscribes to the Twitch channel in this moment, and we could be like, yeah, like this person. But it's okay if you don't, because we know that eventually you will come our way.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, but also, like, we talked about, I think when it comes to costing things, I think an interesting, fun little story to talk about is the decision to where physically we were going to record this series.
Yes.
I can't remember.
We did fully have 3 budgets at one point.
Yeah.
That were based on, when I first, because basically I love spreadsheets and budgets. This is something I actively enjoy in my life. So when Amber, we're on our walk and they say, like, hey, like, kind of looks like this, it kind of looks like this is what we want you to do, I go, okay, cool. And I go home and I'm like, does this mean I get to, yeah, okay, right. And I sit and start doing budgets. Just propose budgets, things that it could be, you know. I don't really know at this point, but I'm setting out the template for how the budget's going to look. And I ended up with 3 budgets after our first meeting. One was record in the Tin Can Audio home studio, the room that Amber and Ella are in at the moment. 2 was record in London, and the 3 was record in Cardiff.
I'll give you a guess which one was the most expensive. It wasn't. It wasn't.
Oh no! Sorry. I thought you were going to say which one we ended up with, not which one.
And there was a lot of conversations about this because, hilariously, Ella and Amber both secretly confided in me that they would prefer to record in the Tin Can Audio studio, but didn't want to suggest it to the other.
Yeah, we both. Because I was very much just like, look, I would love to record it here, but here's the thing: it's not a professional studio. and Ella is used to recording in professional studios, and I can't offer that experience. So I think, and obviously Ella's had this. Ella's been writing this for 10 years, and we want to do it right. We want to do it properly. So I think it's maybe better. I'd love to record it here. I'd love the challenge. We'd have more control. But I also think, we should record it in a studio because we're doing this professionally. We're being professional for Ella.
No, see, and meanwhile, I was like, I would love to record it with the Tin Cat Audio Studio, but like the Tin Cat Audio Studio is Amber's office in Amber's flat, and I don't know that I want to like take entire possession of Amber's flat for a whole week and put a bunch of actors in there, because I know that Amber doesn't always like it when people are in their space, because Amber is a bit like a cat in that way. And I was like, I'm worried that if I ask them, they'll say yes because they're my friend, and then I'll have pressured them into recording Camlann in their studio. So I'm not sure that I can even ask them if we should record it there, because then they'll just say yes, so I don't know what to do. And then Ross, as he so often does, was like, both of you calm down, and also fix it.
This took place, like, I did so much work trying to figure out where to put this thing. Like, I was on with Arts Council Wales trying to work out if we could get Welsh funding to record in Cardiff. I was contacting recording studios in London to try and work out, like, because we're like, well, we may as well do it centrally, and there's a really good audio recording studio, and like, so I'm on the phone chatting to the guy who runs that, being like, oh, let's like think he's inviting me down to have a tour and stuff, and I'm like, I fully live in Glasgow. And like,
are you saying we could have had a tour of a recording studio and you didn't tell me?
Yeah, he did offer that anytime I'm in London I can still do that. He's like, hey, even if you don't come meet us. It sounds like you're doing cool stuff. So we should do that at some point. It'd be nice.
Yes, but you can go on a field trip.
Can we go to the recording studio?
It's got the like kind of like radio drama recording setup, proper like oval where you can have everyone out with their in front of their mics.
Now
like,
I'm excited.
I have is like that thing Critical Role deliberately built for the animation recordings before they had to do it. You know, like they built a home studio where they could all stand around. It's got one of those. And that's what I wanted to, that's where I wanted us to record Camlann if we went down to London. Going down to London meant replying through Arts Council England, which we can do. And especially with Ella being an English writer, we would have a really good shot. But it was a lot more expensive. We could have still done it. It was just that sort of like, it's a lot more work to organize and a lot more expensive for us. And if I'm honest, I think we would have ended up with a far worse product because part of the best thing about Tin Can Audio Studio is it is filled with gadgets and gizmos and weird things we can play with. And we did. And if you've watched any of these other streams, and if you haven't, please go and do, you will hear us talk about the radio setup where we had a radio for people to play with. The fact we could put people in different rooms and have them talk on radio, on actual radios. The truck setup, which was great. The fact that we could make...
you laughed at, by the way.
I did, because it was really funny, and people really did look very silly. And if I recall correctly, the first time that we got some people in the truck setup, you went to the door of the studio, and I was standing next to you, and you were like, it is quite funny, actually, isn't it? And I was like, yes, thank you. I'm vindicated. I didn't say it was a bad idea, I just said it was really funny to look at. It was like the Star Trek thing, where they're all sitting in the chairs, wobbling about whenever the ship gets broken. Like, you basically did that to our actors. You were like, sit on a chair and pretend you're in a car. Okay. It was like something out of a sitcom.
They didn't do their own sound effects. That would be weird.
We did at least twice that happened.
Yes, we did lose takes because the actors kept doing their own sound effects.
But like, I mean, when you think of that moment in episode 9 where Perry turns round while driving the car while talking to Di, and turns round to look out for the horses, and you hear the turnaround because Perry is in the truck, because Robin was in the truck. That moment alone, absolutely worth it.
I think also as well, I think the argument I made was, if we were in somebody else's studio, we would have less control over how things were recorded, right? Like we'd be using their microphones, we'd be using their kit, and we'd be coming at it from a place of not a power dynamic, but it would basically be like, we wouldn't know what was available until somebody told us what was available, and we'd be at the behest of a different recording engineer with different knowledge and different ideas of how stuff could be recorded. Because so my experience of being in recording studios has mostly been for music, and I've been in so many scenarios where we've worked with a recording engineer who was just bored the whole time, didn't want to be there, was just clocking in and doing a shift, and I didn't want that for this. Like if I wanted to if we were going to make this, I wanted to be in a studio, and I wanted to have control over how things were recorded, and I wanted to do things in a weird way, because that's my thing, apparently. I kind of figured, well, look, if we're here, it means there's less pressure. It means we have a bit more leeway when it comes to scheduling and time pressures. And it also means we have a lot more flexibility when it comes to how we record stuff. We can test stuff. We can experiment with stuff. And yeah, that was kind of my rationale. But at the same time, I was also like, but if we want to record in the studio, we absolutely should do that. If we want to do that, we should do that instead.
Yeah. So like after I built these 3 budgets and was contacting people, and then both of you secretly confessed to me you'd rather do it in Glasgow, I was like, okay, we need a meeting. Everybody, huddle around.
Yeah,
You need to talk to each other and communicate, because you want the same things. You just don't want to say to the other person you want the same things.
Ross.
And you know what? I want that thing too, because I know Creative Scotland well in terms of their application process. I trust them. I think they're great. And I believe that we could get the money from them. And I don't really have that connection with Acer or Arts Council Wales. So can we all just agree that Scotland's the best one and go for it?
Ross starting the meeting. Ross starting the meeting going, I think we should record in the Tin Can Audio Studio. And both me and Ella going, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. We should do that. That's a great idea. Why didn't we think of that?
The importance of communication, everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the first 3 budgets before we even made an application.
Oh yeah, we're not making the show yet. Just like in this stage of the process, the show has not started work. We've not started work on the actual show yet. We don't know if we're going to make.
However, that is with it turning over to 9 o'clock. We should maybe move on to recording week and getting prepared for that. The setups, the casting.
The casting briefing document, which Angharad reads every day to this day in detail.
Yes, the recording week information document. We will get to this. Can I ask that we take 5 before we do?
Yes, let's take 5 minutes. Yeah, well, let me quickly set this up so I can put some music on. I might just play the thing again. Yeah, okay. Cool, I'm going to put some music on, and then we're going to go chill for 5 minutes, and then we'll be back. So we're back at, 5 past? Okay, 5 past. Okay, campfire starting up. So we will be, we will be back soon. See you in a bit.
Do you remember when you met him?
Vaguely.
I told you he was trouble.
And I told you I could handle a little trouble for a face that pretty.
I seem to remember eloquent lectures on the curvature of his arse.
Camlann, that's season 2 finishes?
No.
Ross, no.
Since I'm embarrassing when I'm tipsy.
No, you're not.
Yeah. No,
You
it's
just
a
don't
huge
share.
twist, and then that character dies, like, for real.
No, wait, guys, we're live. We can't talk about that.
Oh no!
Oh, no.
Gosh, we've been caught out.
Hello, everybody. We're back. We have lighting again. Ella has a literal spotlight on her now.
It's because I'm special.
Very funny, so original. Ooh, what do we like? We just go on and on. Okay, right. Let's talk about recording week. I believe that's what we were going to talk about.
Yeah. So we did a little bit on casting, but we didn't do. We still don't have actors, I guess, in our timeline.
That's
So-
true. We've not got actors yet.
Let me tell you about casting. Because I led on that one, and I mostly ported a lot of the strategy that we use at Six to Start, where I work my day job or make the apps Zombies Run and Marvel Move, which are both kind of fitness audio drama apps. And so we cast a lot of actors because we do lots of multi-episode serialized audio dramas on those apps. Yeah, like what we do at those apps is we have essentially a Google form, and we put quite a lot of thought into the phrasing of those questions. Both Ross and a friend of his who consulted on the form with us just to make sure that like there's it's accessible from a disability point of view, it's comfortable from like a trans and queer point of view. We don't want to ask people to feel like they have to like perform a caricature of themselves in order to get cast, like whether that's their ethnicity or their gender or their sexuality. We wanted people to give us any information they felt was relevant and they felt comfortable sharing, but we very specifically did not want them to give us extra information. There were some important details though, like for example, we knew that for Diane Morgan, we needed Welsh speakers and we wanted people with a meaningful connection to Wales. For Gwen, we wanted someone with a meaningful connection to Scotland. And for Gwen, we wanted specifically a British Chinese person. And so, and for Perry, we specifically wanted to cast a trans actor. As a casting director, just a little aside, I have quite a lot of strong feelings about how we should not pressure actors into disclosing their sexualities in order for them to perform different roles. There are lots of different reasons an actor may or may not disclose their sexuality or disability, because it will affect the rest of their career. However, I think with the state that we're currently at in politics as regards the trans community in the UK right now, it is not appropriate to give the roles of trans characters to actors who are openly cisgender. That is not okay. There are very few roles that trans actors get cast in anyway because of transphobia. So the few roles that exist for trans characters, like trans actors need to be cast in those roles. It's very important to us that we cast a trans actor in the role of Perry. And then kind of circulated it on the regular places. So that's like, there's a couple of Facebook groups which are for people who are looking for auditions. There's a Welsh Actors casting call group, which we used. There's the Audio Fiction Weekly newsletter. There's audio drama auditions on Twitter and on Instagram. And there's the Audio Drama Hub Facebook group. We used Will Williams' website to list it as well. And then in addition to that, there's an ESEA, which is East and Southeast Asian actors casting group, again on Facebook, which connects to a newsletter, which we used specifically to find East Asian actors who might be interested in playing the role of Gwen. We noticed that over time, characters with more specific backgrounds would just get less auditions, and so when we noticed that an actor or a character was getting less auditions, we do a spotlight on that character and kind of do an extra push to our personal networks. So Amber, Ross, and our marketing manager Sarah, who is also a brilliant film director and writer in her own right, who is currently funding a film. It's really cool. It's called Fight Me. There's a crowdfunder for it, so please support that. Fight Me is amazing. It's kind of like The Office meets Polite Society. It's about this one woman who eventually just has enough and is like, hey, what if I literally just fought my office? Like, check it out, support it, it's great. But anyway, so Sarah, Ross, and Amber helped me with like accessing like amazing Scottish creatives. I already knew a few Welsh creatives who I could reach out to directly, and who could also kind of put the word out. And then, as I said, I kind of use this Facebook group. There's also a couple of theatre companies in the UK that represent and make work like primarily featuring like East and Southeast Asian actors. And so like I contacted some people who I knew who worked for theatre companies that represent ESEA actors and was like, hey, could you get this casting call out to people? It's important to me when casting, and it's an important general rule, to be upfront about how much money you're offering, what the commitment is, so how much time you're asking for, if there is travel, how is the travel going to be handled, and things like that. But we were very transparent and upfront with kind of everything. I think the last things to note about casting is first, in Perry's audition piece, there was kind of brief mention of transphobia, and that was something that we wanted to make sure that our actors were aware of ahead of time, and that they had the option to essentially like veto if they needed to. We invited feedback on the writing because I do not embody all of the identities of all of the characters I've written. There's always a chance that I'll have said or done something that might cause pain or discomfort in a way that I haven't anticipated. And then on the other side of things, we also did chemistry reads with our Gwens and Morgans and our Dyes and Gwains, because we were aware that the chemistry between those two pairs was really important to the narrative. What was interesting with that was whilst we didn't end up actually casting any of the pairs that we read together, Amber cut the audio of the chemistry read scene so that we could hear how different actors sounded against each other. And I would say, like, for any directors and casting directors working with sound engineers like at this early stage in the process, that was incredibly helpful, because one big thing when casting for audio is different sounding voices, and we really needed to have voices that sounded distinct against each other, especially Diane Gwen and Gwen and Morgan. And so that really helped. And yeah, then we reached out to either our actors or their agents and kind of made our offers and said, you know, this is how much we can pay, this is the time commitment, these are the logistical details. And some of the agents kind of wanted to check a couple of details. That's pretty normal. And once we kind of clarified those kind of things, we could get to the point where we could send our actors the scripts and hand over to Ross for the recording week briefing document.
Oh, yes. So I am, again, I'm a spreadsheet person, I'm a document person. I fully believe in just getting everything communicated, generally multiple times in multiple ways, but having a one source of truth document. We cannot show that document. I did have a quick look at it.
Okay.
It has fully your address on it,
Yeah.
my phone number, and everyone's emails. We cannot show it. I did not have time to blank it out.
Just scrolling down just now, I looked at it and I'm like, yep, that's Ross's direct email address. That's my actual home address. Yeah, we're not showing that.
Yep. So we cannot show that to you, but we can kind of take you through what the I think I can. I had it up a second ago. Yep. Take you through the kind of things that I would include in information to send your cast, or to like that I thought was important to include in this kind of document of truth, which was updated throughout the week to make sure that people, if they needed to find out any information, that could be the first place they went. Now, often people won't. They will just pick up the phone or they will email you. That is also okay, but it's good to have one place because then at any point people can check it. If it's in the middle of the night and they go, what am I doing tomorrow? There is one place with this information. We then sent that document, we recreated that document every time for our actors with their individual schedules on it as well. And we will get to scheduling. Yeah, sorry.
I can bring
Amber?
up the recording week schedule that is in that document, because that's just one page.
Yes, that should be fine.
You want to bring that up? Okay, hang on, give me just a second.
Yeah.
Let me window capture.
There
we go. That is the recording schedule that we had. So.
Is it up?
I am not sharing the screen with you. I will do that just now.
That's cool.
Any second now when it says it wants to load.
You're a bit soft, Amber.
That'll be why, because I had my microphone muted. That'll be why. Thank you. It's taking its time. Hang on. Let me just click off and click back again.
That's all right. Well, I can get started on this because it's non-visual. But yeah, so I split up the document into kind of before record week, during record week, and after record week, and then had just a bunch of like directory information at the bottom. We have before record week, we had just information on how to get to Glasgow and where to stay, where to book your accommodation. We did have one actor message being like, hey, I was going to book this hotel in this particular part of Glasgow, and I was like, Glasgow is largely fine. Glasgow is lovely. It's a great place to live. Wouldn't live anywhere else. I really like Glasgow. That one particular place I would feel slightly uncomfortable sending you home to at the end of each record week, at the end of each record day. So I'm just going to ask that you pick anywhere else. And so I added it to the document and just went, hey, here's some good places where there are transport links. I think also because it looks very close on the map to the studio,
Yeah.
but there's no direct transport between the two places.
Yeah, if you've got a boat, it's very easy to get to.
Yeah. Are you willing to go literally in a cycling tunnel under the Clyde with low lighting?
Yeah, good God, that tunnel is scary. Oof.
Terrifying. Yeah. Things on travel and accommodation. Then we had a description of the studio. Things like, hey, there's a cat in the studio. If you have cat allergies, this is something you should know, and you should let us know, and we can do our best to mitigate that. I think one of our actors found out they had a cat allergy during
Angharad
record week.
found out she had a cat allergy on the first day, and she kept saying she didn't, and then she kept sneezing, and eventually it got to the end of the first day, and she was standing next to the window, and between every line she was like coughing or sneezing and then doing each line, and her eyes were streaming, and Tobias was like, are you okay? And she was like, yeah, no, it's all good. And we ended up like making her take an antihistamine, and then she felt better, and then that was how she found out she had a cat allergy.
Yeah, because that was the other thing, right? So Paul had told us that he had a cat allergy, and so we had done some prep for it, right? Like I kind of hoovered and dusted the place as good as I could. But I think, was it the first day? I feel like it was the second or third day, right? Like I can't remember.
Who? What? No, Angharad was the first day.
Right? Okay.
Angharad was the end of the first day. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was trying to remember.
That was in like episode 2, episode 1 even, actually, maybe.
Yeah. But it just meant that like Angharad had antihistamines, and then it was just a case of trying to make sure that, I mean, Poppy, I'm not muted. I'm here. I'll move close to the microphone. But the other thing I think with the thing with like Poppy mostly avoided us for the entire week, which was good, because then it meant that there was one less thing to have to worry about. But yeah, finding out you have a cat allergy on the first day of a new job is not fun.
Chat, you need to know, Poppy wants to be a voice actor. Amber thinks that I am unhinged on this, but I am so sure that Poppy wants to be a voice actor, because yes, she did avoid us because she was shy, because there were lots of strangers. However, then afterwards, she, like, when she felt better and she wasn't feeling sick anymore, she fully, in the middle of Diane Morgan's big argument scene at the end of episode 8, she just like biffed the door open, came into the middle of the room and meowed really loudly. That cat has the soul of an actor. She wants to be a voice actor. And, like, I just think it's criminal that you haven't given her the time in the spotlight that she deserves, actually. Amber.
I think potentially she is just jealous of Hobbs.
Like, it's hard not
Like,
to
she
be
doesn't
jealous
really
of
want to be
Hobbs.
an actor.
There's a lot of natural charisma happening here, you know? Like, you look at Hobbs and you're like, wow, like, can you
Main
imagine?
character energy.
Yeah, it is. It's true. It's hard for Poppy to live with that.
I feel like there was a question in chat. You recommend having the actors over in person and not just stitching audio files together like Audio Frankenstein.
Yes.
Okay, Ella, do you want to expand on that? Because I was going to expand on that, but Ella, do you want to go first?
From a performance perspective, yes. People communicate. Have you noticed that it is easier to talk to your friends when you are with them in person than it is when you're over Zoom going, can you hear me? Oh no. Oh sorry. Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Oh yeah. Oh wait, no, sorry. Have you got your headphones in? Oh, well, I think that actually might be that whole thing. Like, okay,
Your
now
mic's muted again, Amber.
yeah, now imagine like you're trying to do like any kind of performance which is reliant on timing, on being aware of the other person's body language, on their micro expressions which might not always show up through a camera. Like, as a rule, it is 100% always better from a performance perspective to have your actors in the same space. There's a reason that like lots and lots of the vast majority of films and TV shows, even though it's very expensive, are recorded with everyone together in the same space, and it's because we will get better performances out of them. It's very much true of radio drama as well. Like, it is entirely possible to record remotely. Everything I do at Six to Start is recorded remotely. But when I'm recording remotely, for example, at Six to Start, I always ensemble record, which is to say I get a group phone call of the main characters and make sure they're on the same call, at least, because they have to be able to react to each other. You certainly shouldn't be recording each actor separately. I don't care how many people say you can't tell. You can tell from a performance perspective, because you'll notice that the shows that don't record people together really struggle to kind of like build up any of that chemistry and magic. Like, whether we're talking about something like the Magnus Archives or Wooden Overcoats, Victoriosity, Wolf 359, The Bright Sessions, We're Alive, all of these things are recorded with the cast together because you get much better performances and much better relationships and much better chemistry from the actors when they are allowed to do their jobs and react to each other. So yeah, like, it's much cheaper to record remotely. It's much easier. You can use an international cast. That's really cool. So yeah, go ahead, record remotely. Some of Camlann is recorded remotely. It's fine. It's not like a sin. But at the same time, like, if you have the option of recording people together, you should absolutely record people together. And if you don't have the option of recording people together in person, then you should absolutely be recording them together over a call and letting them react to each other. From a performance perspective, it is always, always better.
And that is why we need to give a massive round of applause to Dimitri and Christina and Ella for episode 6 because we could not get them into the same room. We could not get them to record their audio on the same call due to tech issues. So they were fully recorded, Frankenstein, as we put it, although with reference for each other, because Dimitri recorded with Christina, they're reading opposite, and then Christina recorded later, having heard Dimitri's performance, and with, if I'm correct, the ability to, we played back some of Dimitri's performance.
We had the
times.
lines available for her to reference so that she could get a sense of like the energy of the scene and what had happened like previously.
So like,
no, you go.
Yeah. I was just going to say, so massive round of applause to them, because just as you were talking there, Ella, I was like, we did end up having to do that for one episode, and it was purely due to tech issues, and obviously budgetary could not afford to get 2 actors up here for a single episode of recording, but we, like, it is possible. It is definitely not the preferred thing, and yeah, shout out to both of those actors for working through the tech difficulties, putting in incredible performances, and Ella for pulling those performances out of people consistently throughout this process, but especially in very trying technical circumstances. And I guess to Hedley and Beth for housing one of our actors in their studio.
God bless Battlebird Productions, Weepick Space Junk, Hedley Lights and Beth Crane, who will frequently be the secret studio of the audio drama industry. They've also often been the studio for Amelia Project actors, getting in so that people can kind of record asynchronously, and we appreciate them.
I think so. I think it's worth saying that, like, we were very lucky to have a studio space. Like we were very lucky to be able to have the actors up here. I do think you can still get performances. Like, the advantage we had being in a studio was that we could play around with things. We could give the actors props. We could we'll talk a bit more about, like, I've spoken at length in the streams about like the method that went into the recording, but broadly I was very much wanting this to be a full body kind of acting performance, and I wanted to try as hard as possible to make the actors forget that there was a microphone there, because if you're recording voice act, you don't listen to people like this all the time, right? Like people are at a distance from you, and I wanted to create that with the microphone. I think you can still get that remotely. I mean, like episode 6, I really love episode 6. Like I think it came out really, really well, and I'm really, really proud of it. And it's proof that like you can still get good performances and you can still get a good effect with recording remotely like that. But I do think the interesting, I think Lou's brought it up in the chat, even together on Zoom we get more fun times and interesting performances than remote. Like, it's this idea that if you're recording together, stuff will happen that you weren't expecting. Like in our case, it was learning that Angharad is a monster, but it was that. But then also like things like the campfire scene. It was kind of going, well, let's have everybody in the room for that scene, and then having the actors just spontaneously improvise reactions, and that we hadn't planned for that. We hadn't planned for that to be a thing, and I think if you have. There's an energy that comes from having all the actors in the same space at the same time, whether that's remotely or in person, and. I think also for me as well. So I've been a voice actor on shows where you just sent your lines and you just recorded the lines and then you sent them off and you didn't hear them until the show came out. And it was this weird thing because then people would ask me like, what was it like to be a part of that show? And I'd be like, well, I didn't really feel like I was a part of it because I was just I was much like Paul, I guess, stuck in a room by myself. Not being allowed to see what was going on in the other room. So I kind of, even if we were recording this remotely, I would have wanted to have done it with everyone on the same call. If you've watched the listen along streams, that would have been a chaotic mess, and I'm glad we didn't do it. But it just means that people feel like they're a part of something, and I think that's a really important part of it as well. That like I think no matter how big the cast is, I think it's important that there is a collaborative community aspect of a recording. I think that's also important to say. Yes. So right.
And I think it worked out very nicely. I think I have one more pre-recording thing I'd like to go over, and then we'll talk about the schedule a little bit.
Okay.
So one thing that we had to devise in advance were studio policies. We were bringing a bunch of professional actors who none of them knew each other. None of them knew us. We didn't know any of them into a space, and we needed to make sure that that space was appropriate and safe for them. That includes a risk assessment. That's way too boring to go into. And it involved not bringing them into a car, Amber.
Okay. I want to get into this, right? So I may have talked about this on stream already. My suggestion was that for the scenes that take place in the truck, right? I thought, look, we have a car outside. Why don't we record them in a car? Right? This was originally meant to be recorded on location, and I wanted to bring some of that.
I actually have the specific truck in mind. Like the truck exists, and I have stood in the back of it on my way up the hill, to the fields on top of the hill. We probably couldn't have let the actors stand in the back of a truck without any kind of seatbelt or anything. But it's fun.
Like we weren't going to drive them anywhere. Like the car would be stationary at all times. It was just to have the movements of being in a car and things. I'm in carbon monoxide poisoning. I hope not. But I'm glad we didn't in the end. I'm glad we didn't, because it meant that I think what ended up happening was much more interesting. As hilarious as the truck setup apparently was.
It was.
It meant that we had a bit more space, we had a bit more freedom, and it also meant we didn't have to go outside because it was October when we were recording.
Well, we did go outside for the first day.
Yes, that's true, but it meant, it meant that we didn't have the actors in the car with the three of us standing outside, gradually getting colder and wetter.
Tons of scenes with 3 or 4 scenes in the truck, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't practical, and I'm glad we didn't do it. But I still think that approach had merit. That's all I'm saying, right? I
agree. It had merit, and we had a risk assessment, and those were the 2 things that came into conflict there. But I'm glad we got everyone running around, and we'll get to recording setups in a minute. But yeah, studio policies were largely around making sure that everyone treated each other and the studio with respect, especially given it's Amber's house. One of the most important policies is just that we took a lot of time over is making sure that we had basically an accountability system for if anything goes wrong, if anyone feels uncomfortable or feels like they need to talk to someone about a situation that is going on during record week. This is a very tough thing to do because we are, in the end, a production team, the three of us together. And while, for instance, me and Ella did not know each other going into this, that is not how it's going to appear to outside people coming into a situation. So we had to make sure that, one, there was a chain of people that you could go to depending on the situation. The policy effectively states if you are feeling like you need to discuss a situation for whatever reason and you don't feel like you can talk to the person involved, the first port of call is please feel free to contact any of the other production team, and we have the information there in the policy. And we also have, if not, we had a kind of a third party person who we provided details for as well, who you could contact if you needed that, if you wanted to talk, who was unrelated to the project in terms of this production team, and it was not one of us directly as friends, who was then kind of had the power to bring that up with the production team privately, confidentially, so that it could be discussed and dealt with as a team. That was one of the most important policies that we had to kind of make sure that we had tightly. And I think that was, Ella, that was a policy that you've adopted in previous projects.
Yes. So that's how I work again on everything at Six to Start, which it's good to have a reporting policy, and it's adapted from the folks over at Heartlife NFP, which is Jeffrey Nils Gardner and Eleanor Hyde, who made Unwell and are currently releasing the wonderful World Gone Wrong podcast, which is a lovely post-apocalyptic fiction podcast about two friends. It's really good if you haven't listened to it already. But they had a background in working in theatre in Chicago, and unfortunately, as in all areas of life, things can go wrong in theatre, but there's a kind of sticky side to the arts and media, which is that because everyone feels like we're all best friends, and because like often there's kind of blurring of like this being a hobby and this being a professional job, it can become difficult, like socially, to kind of bring up like issues that you might have professionally because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or you don't want to be the odd one out in the group. And so it's good to have a reporting policy in place to make it possible for people to give feedback, especially with the understanding that like whatever group you're in, you should always think about kind of the power dynamics of who's in the in-group. So for example, the majority of people at my company and I myself am white, and so if I'm working with a person of color, they're immediately kind of outnumbered, and if I've got one black actor and everyone else in the recording is white, then they are immediately like socially and culturally outnumbered in a way that makes it a lot harder to give feedback about like things to do with like race and culture, and so it's like providing a private, safe, confidential space in which like you can explicitly, and I do explicitly say, both on Camlann but also in my other work, like there will be no professional or social repercussions for this. I will not take it personally. I often joke like, I know I'm not perfect, like I know I'm going to say things wrong. We live in a world that is racist. We live in a world that is sexist and transphobic. The reality is that we have all been raised in a culture that is those things. So it's more likely than not that at some point you will do or say something that will like upset someone or make them feel a little uncomfortable or disrespected. That's okay, as long as you make it possible for that person to be able to say, hey, like, I would like it if you didn't do X thing or like whatever in future, and make sure that that person can say that safely. And that also applies to things like confusion about relationships and relationship dynamics, like making sure that like boundaries are clear and personal boundaries are clear, making sure that people are asking for things like consent around like things like touch. Again, I notice this a lot in media fields where people often like go in for a hug because like media is a very huggy space. Not everyone wants to be touched by a stranger. And so just kind of establishing like, hey, is it okay if I hug you? Is it okay if I touch you? And if they say no, like being like respecting that. So yeah, just like making sure these policies and boundaries are in place at the start, because like Ross says, we're bringing in a bunch of strangers who don't know each other, who are going to be working in really close proximity, and we need them to feel able to leave the building and able to communicate like as and when.
So I thought that was like an important bit to cover of the pre-recording, but I do want to get onto record week proper. I did just notice one very silly thing from the update that we updated throughout the process of recording, which were Hobbs's credits, which I don't believe Hobbs was properly credited in the show notes for all of these.
Oh really?
Because Hobbs,
He's probably credited
Hobbs-
in the show notes on the episodes. I put him in.
Hobbs was all of the following people, depending on the thing. Hobbs was Gellert,
Yes.
and was also Carrie (brackets dead)
yeah. Yeah.
(bracket asleep), and Hobbs (bracket big).
Versatile actor.
So Gellert should be on the phone to his agent. Hobbs should be on the phone to his agent. And we've got a lawsuit coming, folks.
Hobbs is the dog. Yes. So Hobbs over here was our stunt Gellert throughout. Basically, whenever I felt obscene somehow. Whenever we needed an actor to interact with Gellert. And this was the thing. So I remember talking about this the day before recording and going, either the actors are going to be really on board with this, or they're going to look at us and think that we're like, what have I agreed to? Why am I here? This is uncomfortable. But luckily, everyone was really nice, and everyone very much adopted Hobbs the Cuddly Lion as part of the cast, which was nice. So give your actors props, give your actors cuddly toys to play with, and they will adopt them. Right, yes, we were talking about scheduling, weren't we?
We jump onto scheduling, yeah. I'll need to get this up as well.
Is he named after Calvin and Hobbes? Hobbes, yes, he is. I have collected every single Calvin and Hobbes book. It's one of the few collections in my house that I'm very proud of. Sorry.
All right, so high-level scheduling document. I believe we stuck to this almost exactly.
Yeah.
Which is never happens. I'd just like to be clear that that's not some incredible feat on anyone's part. That is pure luck. That is
and good scheduling and good, everyone working very well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to be fair, I worked really hard to adapt how many scenes I was getting to the schedule. Every single day, I would go to Ross and I would say, Ross, I'm really worried that we're not on schedule. I don't think we're gonna meet the schedule. And every single day, Ross would be like, Ella, it's okay. I've planned for this. And every day we get to the end and we would get there, so we did do it.
Because, like, part of my job, as well as doing the scheduling and all of these sort of things, is also kind of management of everyone else's ability to work, which includes ensuring everyone took their breaks on time and making sure everyone had water, everyone took enough time. When Amber and Ella would stay in the studio when we were on break, I would stand there and go get through to the living room and talk to people and take a breath of fresh air and have some food and have some drinks, because they need to have breaks too. But also that means when Ella asks me, are we on schedule, I have to go, yeah, sure. But in a convincing way. Like, in a way where she believes me and she can go and have a break and not worry about it.
Oh, yeah.
That is part of my job. Whether I think we're on schedule or not is unimportant to whether we are or not. I just have to make sure Ella believes that we're on schedule, and that will mean that we get the work done and we will be on schedule.
It was a week of me and Ross going, yeah, it's fine, I'm not worried. Are you worried? No, I'm not worried. It's fine. It's fine.
Truly, part of your jobs in recording week, because I was directing like the project, was just like Ross wrangling my anxiety, like just like truly Ross anxiety wrangler extraordinaire. Like, and I think it was only when we got to the end and we'd actually wrapped it that like Ross like kind of dropped that a bit, and I saw how like tired and like how hard he'd been working to maintain this like casual demeanor all week, and he was just kind of like, suddenly it was like the mask came off and I was like, oh man, are you okay? And it's like, yeah, just really tired. I was like, oh, okay, you see, I understand, you've been wrangling the anxiety demons so that we don't have to.
Job, because if I, as the person who is scheduling and managing the project, I'm freaking out, how is everyone else going to get any work done? Like everyone else is going to freak out as well. So my job, like this schedule's all well and good. My real job is to stand there and go, everything is absolutely fine. We're totally go have a break, chill out, take 5 minutes extra. It's fine. And then you turn around and I go, it's literally it's part of the job. It's probably the most important part of the job because again, how is anyone else going to get any work done if I am freaking out? So they'll be like, all right, folks, I think that's time for the break to be finished. I think, yeah, everyone feeling good? Me going, we should have finished 5 minutes ago.
I think we have a Tobias in the chat. So
Yeah.
hi Tobias, how are you doing? Good to have you.
Wonderful. So yeah. But yeah, the schedule itself, I'm not sure, like, yeah, the kind of interesting ones are we wanted to make sure we got read-throughs with the cast throughout the day, throughout the days. So before each episode, we make sure we have a read-through. We had episode 1 and 2 on day 1 to make sure that they had time to kind of get the chemistry a little bit going between them all. And that was without... So, and also we didn't have Paul or Nicole until later on in the week. So we were just trying to get the Tobias and Harid and Robin's like chemistry together for episodes 1 and 2. And we didn't record any of the singing or opening monologues until the end of day 2. Again, just to give Tobias a bit of time to get used to the character, get used to the voice of Di, so that those, as like the first thing you're going to hear, sound really strong. And they do. I think that worked out really well for us. Yeah. And it also meant we could send people home. I tried, and I think I failed on this one. I like to try and get everyone half a day off by working around the scenes, and I don't think I managed that for this project. But I think Harid and Robin got the afternoon off on the second day. Because it's like, yeah, you're here for a week, you're in a different place. Just, if I can give you a little bit of extra time, that'll be nice. Yeah, otherwise things got a little bit weird further on in the week. We tried to do episodes in their entirety, but without Nicole or Paul, we jumped around a little bit and we did a lot of catching up on Thursday. Thursday was, it looks like there's a lot in there. It's actually a very easy day because it's individual scenes. I think we finished so early on Thursday that we all went out and chilled out in a close by restaurant.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Or did we do whiskey tasting on Thursday?
Whiskey tasting was Thursday, yes.
Oh yeah, we did whiskey tasting. Oh, the storm was Friday, was it not?
Yeah, the storm was Friday. That was. Yeah.
But I think it was also Thursday night. We were worried about walking up to the pub and walking back again because of the storm. So we were like, we'll just go here, because like I remember we had a discussion where like Amber, you and I had a discussion because we knew that some of the cast would be getting their trains home on Friday, like right away after the end of recording. And so we were like, well, we don't want to do drinks on the Friday night in case like people are gone. So we want to do it on the Thursday night. But then on the Thursday night, it was like, oh, well, now we've been predicted this huge storm. So we don't know if it'll be good to go out to the storm and then have to come back in the storm outside. And so we were like, actually, let's just wait inside for an extra hour until we've got clarity on the weather. Because there was like a weather warning. And then Ross did the whiskey speech. And then we did the whiskey tasting, and it was really cool.
It's nice, like it's nice to have actors up. I am used to working with touring poets. That is a lot of what I've done over the past 10 years is have poets come and stay with me and put on their kind of touring shows. And it's just nice to be able to be like, hey, here's a new place. And if you can't show them around so much, which we did a bit of on our day off,
yes,
it's nice to give them a whiskey tasting if they drink and are interested in that. So it's a very Scottish thing to be able to offer, and we did that in the on the Thursday night with everyone. It was very nice. It was very wholesome. We ended up staying up and just chatting a lot of the evening, although being responsible with 2 episodes to record on the final day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, we managed to keep really strictly to the schedule and do basically, by the end we were able to do an episode in the morning and an episode in the evening, which I think is that was real fun.
I feel like just to give you the schedule its full dues, right? So we finished half an hour ahead of schedule. We managed to get everybody wrapped, get everything recorded with 30 minutes to spare. On the first day, we had a 3-4 hour delay because we had to take Poppy to the emergency vets on the Monday because she'd been sick a couple of weeks before, and we had to take her to the vets in the middle of day one. And we still finished with half an hour to spare. We still finished. We finished with half an hour to spare, despite the fact that we finished day one 3 hours behind or something like that. So we 100% made up the time. So this schedule was like bulletproof as far as I'm concerned, because basically a lot of stuff that could have gone wrong did go wrong, and we still finished early. That's the mark of a very good, very tight schedule, I think.
Yeah, and I think like also like I am not putting them on blast, but Robin didn't realise that the Welsh words in their script would be pronounced in a Welsh way. And so a thing that they weren't able to prep for the series recording was like the various Welsh words that they had in their script, which meant that we ended up having to do a lot more takes of whenever Perry had to speak Welsh than I'd anticipated. And Tobias and Angharad like very kindly helped us out. But again, it was something where like those scenes took a lot longer to record than I would have assumed that they would, because there were just a lot of details that we needed to get figured out. Like there were lots of times when like some of the logistical scenes, like whether it's like Perry getting attacked by the dogs, or like running into and out of the truck, or like carrying Perry's body into the house, and like all of this kind of thing, that like did take a moment to set up and figure out and record and get everyone doing, like various actors not understanding how walkie-talkies worked, or you know, people in supermarkets or fire stations overhearing us on walkie-talkies and having to reset the signal to make sure that we weren't gonna accidentally start an emergency incident. And yeah, like the schedule still held up. Like there were a lot of variables that, I mean, I certainly like, and I record dozens of hours of audio drama a month at the moment in my current job, and I think I'm pretty good at estimating like how long it takes me to record something from a directing point of view. And even so, there were so many factors that I couldn't have anticipated, and still the schedule held up. Like I've said it to Ross multiple times that like working with Ross on a project, this is the least stressful podcast that I've ever worked on, but it's so true. And it's really, really down to Ross's like logistical thinking and consideration of all of our comfort as professionals, and also just like practical like brilliance in putting all of it together.
I will say that if I am proud of anything, it is finishing on time and also making sure everyone took every second of their breaks and more. Again, if I am doing my job right, everyone goes home on time and everyone takes their breaks. That is, I think, Amber, you occasionally snuck off to the studio to set up for the next thing during breaks. You always join us.
It calls to me, Ross. I can't be away from it for long.
I also understand that you need Amber time as well. That is also your break. But, I think that's, yeah, if I can say I'm proud of like anything in particular on this project, in terms of the organizational side, it is like, yeah, we never sacrificed a lunch break, or we had 2 15-minute breaks, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and we had an hour-long lunch break in the middle, and we never took time off any single break, and everyone left on time every night. Often early, but not, I think a couple of nights we were here till like bang on. But that is for me the sign of a good job. Like that makes me happy, because sometimes that isn't possible. Like it isn't just, things happen and you have to work like a little bit extra. And like, yeah, if I am doing my job right, that is minimized. And when you get a project where you're able to get to the end of it and be like, oh, everyone worked their hours and only their hours, you're like, yes, I have done the bare minimum of my job. Wonderful.
Okay, you did not bare minimum. Nobody bare minimumed anything in this project. Like that's very, very clear. I think if there's anything, I think if there's one thing you can say about this project is that everyone put in a shift, right? Like
yeah.
Everyone put in a shift. What time we're at? We're at 10 to 10. Do we have time to go over the production document, as in the take list?
The take list.
Yes. Do you want to?
Let's chuck it on screen and see. And while we're getting this on screen and while we're talking about it, if anyone has any questions on the production side or putting this together, please feel free to throw them in the chat and we'll get to them.
That's up on the screen
but
now
yeah.
for you, Ross.
Also,
Wonderful. So, yes?
sorry, just this is not at all serious, but just to interrupt. Also, since we are in the final 10 minutes, there's currently a poll on Tumblr about whether this person.
Okay, hang on, let me get it. Take that off screen.
And I'm just saying, like, if you wanted to, we have all become irrationally invested in this poll. The person who made the poll was like, listen, I'm probably not going to pay attention to the poll, and yet here we are. And
believe you're doing this.
No, I see. I wasn't gonna send them the link or anything. I was gonna say it existed, and if they want to, they can help us. See, you say you can't believe I'm doing it, but you're the one sending the link. I just said that there was a poll.
Right, there we go.
I'm sorry. Anyway, back to production.
I noticed that Ross has logged off.
What? Has Ross just left?
I'm still here. Still here. I appreciate that, Ella. We were ahead of Wolf, and that was cool for a little bit. I don't know
It
if
was
still
really
are.
cool. There was a brief moment.
I imagine Ella does.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the take list. This is something that I started doing for Folklore to keep notes. There's probably some silly stuff still in here.
No,
because
there
I will
isn't.
tell you
We were very good at deleting it after we'd done the silly stuff, so you're all good.
Cool. So I did have to do this manually, and if anyone has any good ideas how to not have to do this manually, I am open to suggestions. But I took the scripts and I took out every line of dialogue. I gave it a line number. I had to cross-reference the line number because sometimes the line numbers didn't add up. So I had to put them all in individually, put down who said them, make sure the line number added up to the script. And then throughout the process, I would add in which takes we use, which takes we recorded those lines on, and then which were the favourite take by Ella, which me and Ella were secretly messaging each other on WhatsApp for takes, while me and Amber were being very silly and writing messages to each other in this shared Google sheet that we were both working on at the same time.
Yeah. We have deleted all of them, so all the crimes are hidden. This is a system that we adapted. So I'm just going to pop back over to OBS. Let me just turn that window off so you can see it. So this is a system that we adapted from the way the BBC does their production coordination. But what they do it with like physical scripts and like different color highlighter pens to mark different takes, which is a good system. It's just for something like this, it's wildly inefficient, and we were trying to save on paper as much as possible after we'd printed scripts off for all the actors. But the great thing about this system, and I think it's why I think it's really good to have line numbers in scripts, is that it means that if we go back to it just for a second, it means that you can pick your favorite take for individual lines. So I'm gonna scroll down and see if I can find an example. Everyone was so consistent in their.
To be fair, yeah, consistently we the actors hit perfectly what we needed them to do.
Here we go. So in this episode here, Morgan's Angharad screaming was better in the second take rather than the last take. So in that case, we've written the favorite take down as that specific number, and then also it meant that if we had any pickups or anything, they were noted down. Basically, it meant when I got to editing, when I got to post production, I could literally look at the document rather than listening to like upwards of, I think it was like something like 20 hours worth of recording. It meant that rather than re-listening to 20 hours worth of recording, I knew exactly which take to pick up, which take to go to, which one to take out of the recording and put it into the project file. It cuts down editing time so much. I cannot stress how important this is when it comes to a production process, because it means that rather than re-listening to everything you've recorded, you know exactly which take to go for and exactly which lines to pull out of it as well. Like, this for me, this is the most important part of a recording, is the take list document. It's the thing that makes the rest of the show work, as far as I'm concerned.
It was very fun. It's been fun to put it together, because I remember you sent me the BBC version, or the version you'd maybe used on a previous project, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't know how I would mess around with this. I'm just gonna make one for folklore. I was like, this is what I came up with, because it was like, it was over different lines, and you couldn't filter anything, and you couldn't, and I was just like, oh, from a spreadsheet point of view, I want to make this differently. And it's a lot of extra work probably to put together, but I think it works really nicely once it exists, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also then I got very bored. Well, not bored at all. I had a lot of extra time during record week. So I started adding little features like when we had anything in the notes section. Oh, okay. We have this as well. So this was something that I added in. This is because some things were recorded out of sequence, but we kept the same take. We went sequentially with takes throughout the entire series, so there were a total of 250 takes. We had I created a take calculator, which would basically scan the whole document, looking for the last big number, the biggest number that was put in the notes column, and then it would pull it through and say your latest take was 250. So at the start of each morning, we could be like, just check the take calculator. What was the last take? We can start from there, because we might have, at the end of day 2, we recorded a bunch of takes of Tobias doing the opening monologues, but we were jumping into episode 3, so we, instead of looking for the last thing we recorded through all of these different tabs, we could just look at the take calculator. I like spreadsheets a lot. I also the cast member's name would come up orange once we had takes, and green once Ella had told me what the favorite take was. And we had a little conditional formatting to tell if I ever put outtake on a thing, it comes up blue, so that Amber could scan through and find the takes with the outtakes on them.
Yeah, let me see if I can find an example of that. Hold on.
Again,
yes, here.
Drumroll outtake, our favorite, Tobias. If you're still
yeah, let me bring that up. Yeah, so right in this cell here, because it says outtake, it's colored blue, and so it meant that when I was editing, I knew exactly which takes to pull bloopers from for the blooper reel, which was very, very good and very handy.
And that's the one where Tobias started doing the drum roll that happens in episode 1, but just didn't stop. He just kept going. And he was doing the drum roll on his chest, so he was just standing there making eye contact with Robin and Angharad, hitting his own chest for ages and ages and ages, and eventually he was like, I don't know when to stop, and it was his line next, and he'd just forgotten that it was his line next, and we were like,
it went on for so long. It
just kept going.
Yeah, this is the take list. And all the silly things I made it do when initially it was just the data, and then I was like, I think it can be more fun, and now I've got it forever and we'll use it for everything, and it will continue to adapt and get sillier with a lot of ridiculous formatting and formulas that make me happy primarily, but hopefully make Amber's life easier as well.
So I feel like this is your version of the Camlann project file, right? Where it's like this giant beast of a thing.
And it's definitely, in terms of complexity of the work we had to do, also very similar, of just you had to spend weeks and weeks on this project file, and I fiddled around with it while I was taking takes. That sounds about right, skill wise.
I mean, I think this was kind of, I mean, the thing I said at the time was, it's been a good week to be a nerd, is what I said.
Yeah.
Because I think what was interesting, Ella, I can't speak for you when it comes to your experience of recording week, but there was a feeling during recording that it's like, oh no, we're putting together a method here, right? Like we're formulating a way of working together.
Yes, and this is why we need to share our method. Because it was a great way to record an audio drama.
Yeah.
and I think more people should do it. It was very good for our sound designer. We kept our sound designer very healthy. Look at them. Their hair is shiny. They're clearly in good health.
This is your brain on audio drama.
Yes. It was great. From my perspective as a director and a writer, I felt that we got really good performances. I was really, really happy with how the recording week went. Like, part of my job as a director, in addition to just getting good performances, is making sure that our cast are happy and comfortable and feel like they're in a good mood throughout the week. And because Ross was being so good on making sure that people were getting their breaks and stuff, I think everyone did feel really like comfy and safe, and like they would like to do more because we made it so that it was a comfortable process in the first place. Like, that's one of those things where when you go into an audio drama, like, it can be easy to kind of be like, okay, I'm going to take all these shortcuts because right now I don't have any funds, but hopefully in future I will. And the issue is that if you don't think about how you're going to make the process comfortable and safe for your cast, then they might not want to come back, because they might just remember, oh, that was really stressful. We had to skip all those breaks. We kept running over. I had to cancel plans. I don't really want to do that again. And because we had this whole thing of like, well, we really want to be able to work together again and work with these actors again, even if it's not on Camlann, we want to make sure that this process is robust and comfortable and makes them feel like they can come back and trust us to do like other projects with us. And yeah, from that perspective as well, it felt really good. And something that I felt really, really pleased with and really happy with, and really proud of. And yeah, absolutely. Like, it's part of why I'm so glad we've been doing this, because I think it is a great thing to be sharing with people. I would recommend these methods.
Yeah, and also, so somebody said do it in post. No, do it for the you in post, and do it now. Like, I think that's the other side of it as well. I think between the three of us, we've all had experiences working in media that were bad. to gloss over an awful lot of stuff. And I think that just went into this kind of like, well, we have the opportunity here to do it differently, and I'm really glad that we were able to do it differently, and that we're able to talk about it and share all of it. So yeah, that like I'm very happy with how this worked out, and very happy that we came up with this way of making an audio drama that seemed to not ruin people. That's always nice. And yeah, so we've got a question. So the spreadsheet rather than scripts. So they're kind of comparing spreadsheets over scripts. So we did have scripts. Like Ella wrote scripts in the kind of traditional way. This wasn't a replacement for the script. This was just a document for Ross and I to keep track of take numbers. And so it meant when it came to doing the editing, it meant that I could look at a document and go, right, that's that take, rather than looking at a script and then scrolling through and trying to find which line from four to five different takes.
It's worth saying that in scripts, I use Final Draft, and in Final Draft you can make it so that it numbers all the lines for you, which is like just a first port of call. You can also like format things like sound effects differently, which helps things with like your actors and also for organizing take numbers. So again, in my job at Six to Start, we format all of our scripts in the same way, which is like with line numbers that restart for each scene. And then when I'm talking to my actors, it makes life a lot easier, because I can say, can you redo line 11? Can we pick up from line 8? Like that kind of thing. But I can also then afterwards, what we do is we have a shared Dropbox folder, and I leave notes on the scripts for recording for the sound engineers. So then the sound engineers download the script and the recording, and they can see in my notes, I'm like, yeah, use the third take for each of these, but use take 2 of line 15. And so they can just read along with the script as they're editing and be like, okay, this is where it goes. And yeah, like Amber says, adding the spreadsheet is really, really helpful for the sound engineer. And if you've got a production manager like Ross, to keep track of. I actually, as the director, didn't really see this spreadsheet. Like, I saw it over Ross's shoulder, but this was a document that I never worked from. Me and the actors were working from the scripts, and then we were communicating with Ross and Amber, who were working from this spreadsheet.
Yeah, which did allow me and Amber to do a lot of silly bits to just for each other's benefit on the shared.
Yeah, we were. I think anytime there was a reference to the Knights of the Round Table, I was like putting Monty Python lines in the spreadsheet. Like, it was that level. And I think that for some reason, like, the thing my brain keeps coming back to is kicking dogs in the face and body. I don't remember where that started, but
it was when we were at the vet, and let's not tell that story.
Yeah, no, let's not.
No animals were harmed in the making of Camlann. But yeah,
one animal
It
was
weirdly
healed in
wasn't-
the making of Camlann.
Yeah, Camlann healed an
specifically,
animal.
like Poppy was taken
What-
to the vet.
Poppy is okay. Poppy is very okay. Poppy
one-
came back from the vet high on morphine, and
Oh,
they
she
wouldn't.
was high.
They
She
wouldn't
was so
give me
high.
any, but they gave Poppy loads, so it's all good.
yeah, and Hobbs was employed as all of the things, including, as I'd just like to repeat again, Galert, Perry dead, Die asleep, dogs big.
Rawr. He's a great actor. However, his agent's contact details are not available online because he's too prestigious for that. So it's kind of like invitation only. You have to know the right people to get to work with.
It's me. It's me.
With him.
You have to know me.
Okay, that is 10. Should we just check? Do we have any last questions before we go?
I don't know. I'm just having a look. So yeah, if there are any other questions, stick them in the chat just now. It's just everybody saying really nice things, which is rather lovely. People asking details about the Tumblr poll, which we've shared. No, I don't. We don't seem to currently have any questions, but we'll hang around for another 5 minutes if people have them. But I guess, like, do we want to talk about, like, I mean, I guess it's maybe too early to talk about like what next steps or what we're up to now or anything like that, because everything's very up in the air. But yeah, no, I think like I think there's stuff about post-production, but I feel like I've covered post-production fairly exhaustively, one might say, with the other.
One
the other
thing that we
streams.
haven't had a chance to talk about is marketing. We had a wonderful artist, a great external designer, and I will let Ella fill you in a little bit on there. But this was the point that I had earmarked to talk about Sarah and how cool Sarah is.
Yes, let's talk about Sarah. Let's talk about Sarah.
is so cool. So our cover artist is Ellen Manon. She is on Instagram and other websites under her name, ELIN, and then M for mother, A, N for November, O, N for November. Ellen is great. She is a Welsh-speaking illustrator. She always posts bilingually, which is just really cool, and she makes lots of stuff about Celtic, informed by Celtic culture and art. So from all around the British Isles. So has a great calendar that I've been using this year, which has stories from Scotland as well as Wales, as well as Ireland, and in places in England like Cornwall. And then our graphic design was done by Comhara Media, who are a great graphic design company based up here in Scotland, that our marketing manager Sarah has worked with before on her film projects. Again, she's currently crowdfunding a film. It's called Fight Me. You should definitely help crowdfund it. It's a really funny film about a woman who loves Bridgerton, who one day is like, hey, what if I literally just fought all of the sexist assholes in my office? And it's great.
I'm doing the music for it, so that's another reason.
Yeah, if you like Amber's work, Amber's gonna be on this film too, so fund it. So Sarah is truly just an absolute, you know how stars do nuclear fusion in their cores? Sarah is the heart of a star, and then we put her on marketing, and it was kind of watching I don't know, it was turbo boosting a garlic it was she is so much more powerful and talented than the marketing of one small indie podcast needs, but she just put all of her considerable talent and skill and drive into marketing our podcast, and it shows, because boy howdy did we have an amazing marketing campaign. Oh gosh, sorry. Was that?
I have no idea what that was.
I think it might have been me being so loud I got picked up on your other microphone. It's the love of Sarah is too strong. So Sarah just created this massive spreadsheet, kind of similar to Ross's, which had like a whole like years planned schedule of like what the dates were that she was going to be posting around, what assets she needed. She had a folder of marketing assets. She asked all of the actors and us and the production crew to give her assets. We took photos and videos during recording week. We then asked the actors for permission for us to share each of the photos and videos before they got put online. And then Sarah, like as a film director, like edited a bunch of the videos, like made us like little videos and graphics. Comhara Media made us templates based on Eileen Manon's artwork, so that we could share things like episode release graphics. You'll notice that they all have a kind of similar visual identity. That was because of Comhara Media and Eileen's work, both of which we had budgeted for in our application to Creative Scotland. And then Sarah, kind of had this campaign of stuff that would be happening throughout this series release. Now, obviously, we couldn't pay Sarah to like just maintain the accounts forever. So like at the moment, like I mostly kind of run our social accounts like essentially in our like off season. But then if we do get to make another season, like, you know, Sarah's time will be budgeted in our funding application, so that she can help us do what she did this time, which is kind of like a run up to the series and then during series release and then like just shortly after the end of the series release. But yeah, like Sarah's work was invaluable. She also did stuff like sending press releases out about the series so that we could try and get some press coverage, which we did. In large part, I think thanks to Sarah's like contacts in Scottish media. So we got a write up from a Scottish magazine.
But also your contacts in
also my
audio
contacts
as well.
in media. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like Sarah's marketing campaign is incredible. I don't understand Instagram. I was sitting on this sofa yesterday while Sarah was showing me how to do a thing on Instagram, because I'm not great at it, but we are very lucky to have had her and to have worked with her.
Yeah, no, like we're very fortunate. And also just having somebody taking care of marketing. Sorry, also just having somebody doing marketing, having a separate person for that just meant that we didn't have to worry about it. So it meant that, like, because I think that's something that I've always found very stressful when I've been making stuff on my own, is having to do the marketing and the promo side of it. But just having somebody who understands how that works was invaluable. I'd highly recommend, hire Ross and hire Sarah, in that order. Hire Ross to help you make your thing. Hire Sarah to help you market the thing. That's the order. If you need a sound designer, maybe hire me. If you need someone to voice direct, hire Ella.
I love voice directing.
There you go.
Also, someone said in the chat, how do I get other people in a production company or I'm assuming in a team? My top 2 tips would be go on the Audio Drama Hub Facebook group and also check out the Fiction Podcast Weekly newsletter and put a listing in there. There are loads of people around the world who want to make audio drama. There are lots of people who are doing it for free, just for fun and out of passion because they've got the time and they've got the resource. There are lots of people who will do it for like a low fee or a token fee, as long as you're upfront about that and you're very clear about like the level of commitment. There are so many people out there who will collaborate with you. Just straight up like describe your project, say who you're looking for, explain the terms, like how much time you're asking for, what you can offer in return. If you can't offer a fee, just say that and that's okay. Put a listing in the Audio Drama Hub Facebook group, put a listing on the Fiction Podcast Weekly newsletter. From there, you will start finding the audio drama community. They are on Tumblr, they are on Instagram, they're on Twitter for what it's worth, and they do want to work with you.
And work on other people's projects. Go look for those listings and offer the skills that you have. And even if you are like me, my background is I'm a writer, which was almost like the least of the work that I did on this. Like I did do a script consultancy for Ella, but like, there are skills that you can offer even if you are an unskilled Joe like me, which is spreadsheets and things like that. There are admin work, and go and help other people and work with other people and learn their processes and talk to them about creative things, and then see who you want to work with, who wants to work with you. And the more you are able to do that within your own capability, the more likely you are to find people you want to work with, especially in longer term things, especially on your own projects. And the more people will want to work with you as well, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I met Amber because I was a fan of their work, and I like DM'd Tin Can Audio on Twitter, and I was like, hey, I really like your podcasts. There's going to be this podcast event. Like, do you think you'd like to come to it? And we met through that, and we met originally through just being peers in the industry and like both liking each other's work, going to events when we could, seeing each other at festivals and things. And like, we weren't originally like really close friends. We weren't originally really close collaborators, but we just kept being in the same spaces and having conversations about the kind of art we liked and the kind of stories we liked. And eventually we kind of like started moving towards working with each other more on different kinds of things. Like, Amber asked me to be exec producer on The Tower season 3. And I asked Amber to be a sound designer and composer on this standalone thing I did for Monkey Tales. I asked Amber to compose the theme for Doctor Who Redacted. I recommended Amber for an episode of Murmurs, which was this BBC anthology series where they produced and sound designed an episode. And
no, I directed 2 episodes.
Oh,
I
I'm
didn't
sorry.
do any sound design.
Sorry, apologies.
I don't want to take credit for that.
Directed. But they like, we worked alongside each other and with each other on other projects for a really, really long time before we got to this point. Like, it wasn't like I kind of fell out of bed and was like, oh, great, there's 2 amazingly talented people who can work on my project. It was kind of, we have all known and worked with each other for a really long time. And then this was the biggest project that we were moving in on together. And I think right at the start of the production process, we had to have this very frank conversation of like, look, we're all friends, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's quite difficult to work with your friends because sometimes you're going to have to tell each other things you don't want to hear, like from a professional perspective, like you can't record in the truck. Or, Ross will do a script edit for me and say, Ella, in this Monster of the Week series, episode 3 doesn't have a monster. You need to rewrite that whole episode. And you need to be...
Episode 3.
You need to be clear about, like, professional boundaries and about... is it okay for me to talk to you like this because you are both my friend and my colleague? And what was really nice about this project was because all 3 of us had been working in the arts for a long time and we've all worked on a bunch of different projects, which, like Amber said earlier, have not always gone smoothly. We could all be quite realistic with each other and be like, look, it might be that we get to the end of this and we're all so stressed out with each other that we all need, a break. And maybe we don't work on another professional project together again. But I think because we went in with that, like, clarity, it meant that we were able to kind of like do the project safely and sustainably in a way that meant that like I'm still feeling pretty good about working with Amber and Ross by the end of the process, which is a really nice place to be. I think comes from communication.
Yeah, friendship ended, now Truck is my best friend.
The plot of Transformers.
Okay, I think we are coming up on 20 past. I think we should maybe call it there for an evening. Thank you, Ross, for coming on and sharing your knowledge and delightful experience when it comes to making audio drama. This show would not exist without Ross, or it would exist, but it would not. It would exist in a very chaotic, crumbly sort of state. One of the reasons this show has come together and has come out the way it has is that like everyone was able to focus on the bits that they were able to do really, really well. I was able to fully focus on sound designing. Ella was able to fully focus on directing because we had a Ross absorbing all the admin stress and making sure everything was running smoothly as well. Like it's like I cannot understate Ross's importance in bringing Camlann to fruition. So thank you for coming on and helping with and sharing and telling us how that happened. And because
it's been wonderful, and it's also one of the reasons I love being able to talk about these things is because people should create art. People should specifically create art collaboratively. People should learn about other people's skills and work together. And I did bring us back to funding earlier because I think people should get funding and pay people. And my big takeaway will be funders want to give you money. Go get it from them. Go get it and get a team and make some cool art because it's very cool and very fun and it's there. It exists.
Yeah. Yeah, they funded us. You know, like these weirdos, they funded these, and we made a thing, and it was really cool.
I'm trying to think of the silliest joke in the series that we can say they funded. I mean, I guess they funded an episode called "Our Horse Is Still a Thing." They actually gave us money to do that. So.
I'm basically a
They
wizard.
funded two separate supernatural jokes. In
Oh yes, there
Johnny.
are.
Yes, that's true.
Do you know what? We had that one review where someone was like, "When will any podcast have the confidence to name the Mabinogion and Dean Winchester within 60 seconds of each other?"
We did that. Okay, wonderful. And also, thank you, Ella, for being here. It's been wonderful to have you here.
It's my pleasure. I was enjoying catching up with my old friend Hobbs. You know, it's always good to speak to an influential colleague in the industry, kind of refresh that connection. You know.
Yeah, Ella's only really here to see Hobbs. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like, it's nice that you're here too, Amber, and I'm really pleased that I got to kind of catch up with you, but, like, obviously, mainly it was, Hobbs has such a busy schedule.
I took Ella around all the geek shops in Glasgow today, and she bought many Magic the
I
Gathering
got
cards.
so many cards.
We're gonna be back on Wednesday for some more lo-fi Camlann music. We've done one for Di, we've done one for Morgan. So I think next on Wednesday I'll be doing one for Perry. I think is next. So we'll be doing some lo-fi music for that. So come along for that. It'll be the same time, same place. If you want to catch up on any of these streams that you've missed, on our YouTube channel, we have on the Tin Can Audio YouTube channel, there is a playlist of all the streams. There's about 48 hours worth of content there now, which is terrifying. There's all the listen-alongs with the cast and crew. There's also all the behind-the-scenes streams about the music. There's all the behind-the-scenes streams about the sound design. So if you want to learn more about that aspect of things, like that's a resource that we've made there, and I hope it's useful. I hope people find it useful and people get something out of it. But in the meantime, it is about 10:30 here, so I think it is time for us all to turn in and go to bed. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we will see you soon. Good night.
Bye.